The emergency klaxons screamed across Titan Station as another wave of dragon fighters swept through the outer defense grid. Commander Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the elegant but deadly ships dance between the human interceptors like deadly butterflies. Each dragon vessel moved with an alien grace that made human pilots look clumsy in comparison. "Ma'am, we need to evacuate this section," Lieutenant Morrison called from behind her. His voice carried the strain of 3 days of continuous battle. The dragons broke through Sector 7. They're heading for the civilian hangars. Sarah turned away from the window, her jaw set with determination. The war between humans and the Dragon Empire had raged for 2 years now. What started as a territorial dispute over mining rights in the Kepler system had escalated into a full-scale conflict. The dragons possessed superior technology, faster ships, and what seemed like an innate understanding of three-dimensional combat that humans struggled to match. "Get the evacuation shuttles ready," she ordered. "Priority goes to families with children and medical personnel. Military personnel will hold the station as long as possible." As Morrison rushed to carry out her orders, Sarah took one last look at the battle raging outside. The dragons weren't just winning this engagement, they were dominating it. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, striking at weak points in the human formation with surgical precision. It was like watching a master chess player dismantle an amateur's defense. The station shuddered as dragon plasma cannons found their mark on the outer hull. Emergency lighting flickered on as primary power systems rerouted around damaged sections. In the distance, Sarah could see dragon boarding pods attaching to the station's docking bays like metallic parasites. Meanwhile, in the forgotten depths of Maintenance Hangar 7, something entirely different was unfolding. The hangar had been abandoned for months, used only for storing obsolete equipment and broken machinery. Dust covered everything, and the air recycling systems barely functioned, giving the space a stale, forgotten smell. In the darkest corner of this forgotten place, behind a pile of discarded cargo containers, something small and frightened huddled in the shadows. The creature was no bigger than a house cat, covered in scales that shifted between deep green and midnight black depending on the light. Its eyes, large and golden, darted nervously at every sound that echoed through the hangar. This was Zara, though she didn't know humans would eventually give her that name. She was a dragon hatchling, barely 3 months old, and she was utterly terrified. Dragon hatchlings weren't supposed to be alone. They were supposed to be safe in the nursery worlds, surrounded by their clutchmates and protected by the wisdom of the elders. But war changed everything, even for a species as proud and ancient as the dragons. Zara's story began weeks earlier when a human raid targeted what they thought was a military installation on the outer rim of Dragon Space. The humans were wrong. The facility was actually a civilian nursery, home to dozens of dragon eggs and newly hatched younglings. The attack wasn't intentional genocide, humans didn't even know what they were striking, but the result was the same. Most of the hatchlings died in the bombardment. Zara survived only because she had wandered away from the main nursery, curious about a strange noise in the ventilation system. When the explosions began, she hid in an access tunnel, too frightened to move as her world collapsed around her. She stayed hidden for hours after the sound stopped, listening to the terrible silence where once there had been the gentle sounds of her brothers and sisters. When rescue teams finally arrived, they found the facility destroyed and assumed there were no survivors. Zara, still hiding in her tunnel, watched as the rescuers searched through the rubble. She wanted to call out, but instinct kept her quiet. Something felt wrong about the whole situation, though her young mind couldn't process exactly what. A maintenance worker, hurrying to restore power to the damaged facility, inadvertently sealed Zara's tunnel when he repaired what he thought was blast damage to a ventilation shaft. For days, she survived on emergency rations stored in the tunnel, growing weaker and more frightened as time passed. Her escape came when a routine supply convoy stopped at the facility to investigate reports of power fluctuations. Zara, desperate and half-starved, managed to squeeze through a crack in the tunnel wall and hide in one of the supply containers. She had no idea where the container was going, she only knew she couldn't stay in the place where her family had died. The supply run took her through 3 different systems before ending up at Titan Station. By the time the containers were unloaded in Maintenance Hangar 7, Zara was unconscious from hunger and dehydration. The workers who unloaded her container never noticed the small dragon hatchling hidden among the spare parts and equipment. Now, as battle raged around the station, Zara tried to make sense of her situation. Her enhanced dragon hearing picked up the sounds of combat, the screaming of metal under stress, and the distant shouts of humans running through the corridors. Every instinct told her to hide, to stay small and invisible until the danger passed. But hunger was becoming a more immediate threat than discovery. Dragon hatchlings needed frequent feeding, and Zara hadn't eaten in nearly 2 days. Her body was starting to consume its own tissue to survive, and she could feel herself growing weaker by the hour. The hangar's main door suddenly groaned open, flooding the space with light from the corridor beyond. Zara pressed herself deeper into the shadows, her heart pounding so loud she was sure anyone could hear it. Heavy footsteps echoed across the hangar floor, accompanied by the sound of human voices. "This section's clear," a woman's voice called out. "No dragon infiltrators here, just old junk." "Copy that, Rodriguez," came a man's voice through a communication device. "Sweep the perimeter anyway. Command thinks they might try to use the abandoned sections as staging areas for an assault on the main habitation modules." "Roger." Rodriguez out. The footsteps moved closer to Zara's hiding spot. Through a gap between the containers, she could see a human woman in military uniform, holding what appeared to be a weapon. The woman moved with practiced efficiency, checking behind equipment and scanning dark corners with a handheld light. Zara held her breath, trying to make herself as small as possible. Dragons were naturally gifted at stealth when they needed to be, but hatchlings hadn't yet mastered the ability to completely suppress their life signs. If the human had any kind of thermal imaging equipment, discovery was inevitable. The beam of the human's flashlight swept past Zara's hiding spot, paused, and then returned. For a moment that felt like an eternity, the light played across the gap where Zara crouched. The hatchling closed her eyes, as if not seeing the light might somehow make her invisible. "What the hell?" Rodriguez muttered, moving closer to investigate. The light beam found Zara fully, and, for a moment, neither dragon nor human moved. Rodriguez saw a small, clearly alien creature with golden eyes that reflected the flashlight beam like a cat's. The creature was obviously young and appeared to be injured or sick based on how it trembled. Zara saw death approaching in the form of a human soldier with a weapon. Everything she had been taught about humans suggested this was the end. Humans were brutal, warmongering creatures who killed first and asked questions later. They had no concept of honor or mercy, and they certainly wouldn't spare a dragon, even one as small and helpless as herself. But something unexpected happened. Instead of raising her weapon, Rodriguez lowered it. Instead of calling for backup or sounding an alarm, she took a careful step backward and spoke in a soft voice. "Easy there, little one," Rodriguez said, her tone gentle despite the alien nature of what she was looking at. "I'm not going to hurt you." Zara didn't understand the words, but the tone was universal. This human was trying to communicate without aggression, something Zara's young mind hadn't expected was possible. Dragons were telepathic among their own species, but they couldn't read human minds. Vocal tone and body language were all she had to judge the human's intentions. Rodriguez slowly knelt down, making herself appear less threatening. She had 2 children back on Earth, and her maternal instincts recognized a frightened youngster regardless of species. The creature in front of her was clearly not an adult dragon, those were the size of shuttlecraft and breathed plasma hot enough to melt steel. This was something else entirely, something young and scared and probably lost. "You're hurt, aren't you?" Rodriguez said, noticing how the small dragon favored its left side. "And hungry too, I bet. When did you last eat, little one?" Zara tilted her head at the human's words. The tone continued to be gentle, almost soothing. She had expected immediate violence, but instead this human seemed to be concerned. The concept was so alien to everything she'd been taught about humans that she couldn't quite process it. Rodriguez's communication device crackled to life. "Rodriguez, what's your status? You've been quiet too long." Rodriguez glanced at her comm unit, then back at Zara. The little dragon watched the exchange with intelligent eyes, clearly understanding that the human was communicating with others of her species. For a moment, Rodriguez considered calling for backup, reporting the discovery, following protocol. Instead, she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Section 7 clear," she reported. "Moving to Section 8 for final sweep." "Copy that." "Dragon forces have withdrawn from this sector, but stay alert." "Will do." Rodriguez out. Rodriguez looked back at Zara, who had been listening to the entire exchange with obvious intelligence. The dragon hatchling understood that the human had just protected her? Hidden her presence from other humans? It made no sense according to everything Zara had been taught about human nature. I don't know what you are exactly, Rodriguez said quietly, but you're just a baby, aren't you? Lost and scared and probably wondering how the hell you ended up here. She reached into her utility pouch and pulled out an emergency ration bar. Dragon physiology was different from human, but both species were carbon-based and shared some basic nutritional needs. It wasn't ideal food for a dragon hatchling, but it was better than starvation. Rodriguez broke off a piece of the ration bar and held it out, staying well back to avoid frightening the little dragon. Here, little one. It's not much, but it's food. Zara stared at the offered food, her mind reeling. This human, this enemy soldier, was offering her sustenance instead of death. Every lesson about human nature that had been drilled into dragon hatchlings suggested this was impossible. Humans were supposed to be monsters, creatures without empathy or compassion. But the evidence of her own eyes and senses suggested otherwise. The human's body language was open and non-threatening. Her voice remained gentle and soothing. And she was offering food to a creature that should, by all logic, be her enemy. Hunger finally overcame caution. Moving slowly and carefully, Zara crept forward just far enough to snatch the piece of ration bar before retreating to her hiding spot. The food was strange, nothing like the carefully prepared nutrients dragon hatchlings normally received, but it was better than the gnawing emptiness in her stomach. Rodriguez smiled as she watched the little dragon eat. There you go. Not exactly gourmet cuisine, but it'll keep you going. She checked her chronometer. The sweep schedule allowed her another 15 minutes before she needed to report to the next section. That wasn't much time to figure out what to do with her unexpected discovery. The logical thing would be to report the dragon hatchling to her superiors. It could be valuable as a prisoner, a source of intelligence about dragon society and culture. Command would certainly want to study it, maybe use it as a bargaining chip in future negotiations. But, looking at the tiny, frightened creature, Rodriguez couldn't bring herself to make that call. This wasn't a weapon or a soldier or a strategic asset. This was a child alien, yes, but still recognizably young and vulnerable and in need of protection. What am I going to do with you, she muttered, more to herself than to Zara. The dragon hatchling finished the ration bar and looked up at Rodriguez with those large, golden eyes. There was intelligence there, and something else, a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, she had found someone who wouldn't hurt her. Rodriguez made her decision. Okay, little one. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to finish my patrol, and then, I'm going to come back. Can you stay hidden until then? Can you wait for me? Zara didn't understand the words, but something in the human's tone suggested a plan, a future that extended beyond this moment. She nodded slightly, an almost human gesture that surprised them both. Good girl, Rodriguez said, unconsciously assigning gender based on some indefinable impression. I'll be back. I promise. With that, Rodriguez stood and resumed her patrol, leaving Zara alone in the hangar with a stomach less empty and a heart slightly less afraid. For the first time since her family died, the little dragon hatchling allowed herself to hope that she might survive this strange, hostile universe after all. Outside the hangar, the battle for Titan Station continued to rage. Neither side knew that in a forgotten corner of the facility, the first seeds of something unprecedented were being planted. Human compassion and dragon resilience were about to forge a bond that would challenge everything both species thought they knew about each other. But that was still to come. For now, Zara curled up in her hiding spot and waited for the kind human to return, while Rodriguez completed her patrol and planned how to keep a dragon hatchling safe in the middle of a war zone. Both of them sensed that their lives had just changed forever, though neither could imagine just how profound the change would ultimately be. 3 hours later, Rodriguez returned to Hangar 7 carrying a small bag of supplies she had carefully gathered without attracting attention. The battle for Titan Station had shifted to other sectors, giving her the opportunity to slip away from her regular duties. She had told her squad leader that she needed to check on some equipment maintenance issues, a lie that made her stomach clench with guilt, but one she felt was necessary. The hangar was dark and quiet when she entered, emergency lighting casting long shadows across the abandoned equipment. For a moment, Rodriguez worried that she had imagined the entire encounter, that stress and sleep deprivation had caused her to hallucinate a dragon hatchling in need of rescue. But then, she saw a pair of golden eyes watching her from the same hiding spot, and relief flooded through her system. "Hello again, little one," she said softly, approaching slowly with her hands visible and empty. "I told you I'd come back." Zara had spent the intervening hours in a state of nervous anticipation. Part of her expected the human never to return. After all, why would an enemy soldier risk her own safety for a dragon? But another part of her, a part that was growing stronger with each passing minute, believed that this human was different from what she had been taught to expect. Rodriguez settled down on the floor about 10 feet away from Zara's hiding spot, deliberately making herself appear non-threatening. She opened her bag and began removing items one by one, describing each in a gentle voice. "I brought you some real food," she said, pulling out several different types of ration packs. "I wasn't sure what you might be able to eat, so I got a variety. This one has protein concentrate, this one has synthetic nutrients, and this one is supposed to taste like chicken, though I wouldn't bet my life on that claim." Zara listened to the flow of human speech, beginning to pick out patterns and inflections. Dragons were naturally gifted linguists. They had to be, given their role as traders and diplomats across multiple star systems. Even a hatchling could begin to learn a new language if given enough exposure. "I also brought water," Rodriguez continued, producing a sealed container. "You must be thirsty. And I found some medical supplies. I'm not a doctor, but I know basic first aid. You look like you might have some injuries." The mention of medical attention made Zara instinctively curl up tighter. Dragon culture placed great emphasis on personal strength and independence. Showing weakness or accepting help from others, especially enemies, went against everything she had been taught. But Rodriguez seemed to understand her hesitation. Instead of pushing forward with treatment, she simply placed the medical kit where Zara could see it and backed away. "It's okay," she said. "You don't have to trust me right away. Trust has to be earned, doesn't it? Especially between our species." Rodriguez leaned back against a cargo container and studied the small dragon thoughtfully. "You know, this war has been going on for 2 years now, and I don't think anyone really remembers how it started. Mining rights in the Kepler system, that's what the official reports say. But there's been so much killing since then that the original cause hardly seems to matter." Zara tilted her head as she listened. The human's tone had changed, becoming more reflective and sad. Even without understanding all the words, Zara could sense the emotion behind them. "I joined the military to protect people," Rodriguez continued. "To defend human colonies from threats. But somewhere along the way, it became about revenge. About proving we're stronger or smarter or more deserving of survival than your people. I don't think that's what I signed up for." The honesty in the human's voice surprised Zara. In dragon culture, admitting doubt or confusion about one's purpose was considered a sign of weakness. But this human spoke about her uncertainty with a kind of strength that Zara had never encountered before. Rodriguez noticed that the little dragon seemed to be listening intently to her words. "You understand some of what I'm saying, don't you? Dragons are supposed to be very intelligent. Maybe you're learning our language just by hearing it." Encouraged by this possibility, Rodriguez began to speak more deliberately, pointing to objects and naming them. "Water," she said, touching the container she had brought. "Food," she said, indicating the ration packs. "Friend," she said, pointing to herself. Zara's eyes widened at that last word. Friend was a concept that existed in dragon culture, but it was rarely applied across species lines. Dragons had allies and trading partners and sometimes temporary associates, but friendship with aliens was almost unthinkable. Yet this human had just claimed to be her friend, and her actions supported that claim. She had brought food and water and medicine. She had protected Zara from discovery by other humans. She spoke with kindness and patience instead of aggression. Tentatively, Zara emerged a little further from her hiding spot. She was still ready to bolt at the first sign of threat, but curiosity and hope were beginning to overcome caution. "That's it," Rodriguez encouraged. "I'm not going anywhere. Take your time." Zara crept forward until she was close enough to touch the water container. The smell of clean, pure water made her realize just how thirsty she had become. Dragon hatchlings needed more water than adults, and dehydration was becoming a serious threat to her health. But accepting the water meant trusting the human completely. If this was a trap, if Rodriguez intended to capture her once she came within reach, this would be the perfect opportunity. Rodriguez seemed to understand the significance of the moment. She moved slowly backward, giving Zara plenty of space to drink while still being close enough to offer reassurance. "Go ahead," she whispered. "It's safe." Zara made her decision. She moved to the water container and began to drink, never taking her eyes off Rodriguez. The water was cool and clean and wonderful, and she had to resist the urge to drink too much too quickly. While Zara drank, Rodriguez noticed details about the little dragon that she had missed before. The scales that seemed to shift color depending on the light weren't just camouflage, they were actually expressing emotion. Right now they showed deep blues and greens that somehow conveyed caution mixed with hope. "You're hurt," Rodriguez observed, noticing how Zara favored her left side. "Something happened to your wing, didn't it?" Dragon wings were delicate structures, especially in hatchlings. Zara's left wing showed signs of damage, probably from her desperate escape from the nursery world. The membrane had small tears, and the supporting structure seemed bent. "I could help with that," Rodriguez offered. "I've had medical training." "Not veterinary training, obviously, and certainly not dragon physiology, but I know something about treating injuries." Zara looked at her wing and, then, back at Rodriguez. The injury was painful and would prevent her from flying even if she were large enough to achieve lift. But allowing a human to touch her, to manipulate injured parts of her body, required a level of trust that went against every survival instinct she possessed. Rodriguez waited patiently while Zara wrestled with the decision. She could see the internal struggle playing out in the hatchling's expressive eyes and color-shifting scales. Finally, Zara extended her injured wing slightly, exposing the damage to Rodriguez's view. It was a gesture of trust so profound that it made Rodriguez's throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll be very careful." Rodriguez moved slowly and deliberately as she examined the wing. Dragon wing structure was different from any earth creature she was familiar with, but the basics of treating torn tissue and supporting damaged bone seemed universal. "This isn't too bad," she said as she worked. "The membrane tears are small and should heal on their own if we can keep them clean and supported. The bone structure seems intact, just slightly displaced." She used medical tape to create a gentle support framework for the wing, being careful not to restrict movement while providing stability. Zara tensed at first contact but gradually relaxed as it became clear that Rodriguez was helping rather than hurting. "There," Rodriguez said when she finished. "That should help it heal properly. You'll need to be careful not to put too much strain on it for a while." Zara flexed her wing experimentally. The pain was significantly reduced, and the support framework felt secure without being restrictive. She looked at Rodriguez with something approaching gratitude, an emotion she had never expected to feel toward a human. "You're welcome," Rodriguez said, somehow understanding the look despite the species barrier. Over the next hour, Rodriguez continued to talk while Zara ate and drank. She talked about her life before the war, her children back on Earth, her hopes for a future where humans and dragons might find a way to coexist peacefully. Zara listened to it all, her understanding of human speech improving rapidly. Dragons were natural linguists, but this went beyond mere language acquisition. She was beginning to understand human culture and values through Rodriguez's stories. Humans, she realized, were not the savage warmongers she had been taught to expect. At least, not all of them. They had families they loved and protected. They questioned authority when it conflicted with their conscience. They were capable of compassion even toward their enemies. This revelation was almost too large for Zara's young mind to process. Everything she had been taught about humans was wrong, or at least incomplete. If Rodriguez could show kindness to a dragon hatchling, what did that say about the nature of the war itself? "I have to go soon," Rodriguez said eventually. "My shift starts again in a few hours, and I need to get some sleep. But I'll come back tomorrow, okay? Can you stay hidden until then?" Zara nodded, the human gesture becoming more natural with practice. She had found a safe haven in this forgotten corner of the station, and Rodriguez had given her everything she needed to survive for another day. "Good girl," Rodriguez said, standing to leave. "Try to get some rest. And remember, if anyone else comes in here, hide. Not all humans are like me. Some of them wouldn't understand." The warning was clear, and Zara appreciated the honesty. Rodriguez wasn't claiming that all humans were kind and compassionate. She was acknowledging that Zara would still be in danger from others of her species. But she had also made it clear that she would return, that this strange friendship they had begun to build would continue. For a dragon hatchling who had lost everything, that promise meant more than Rodriguez could possibly know. After the human left, Zara settled into her hiding spot with a full stomach and a bandaged wing. For the first time since her family died, she felt something approaching safety. It was fragile and dependent on the kindness of a single human, but it was real. As she drifted off to sleep, Zara thought about the stories Rodriguez had told. Stories of human children playing in gardens, of families gathering for meals, of people working together to build homes and schools and hospitals. These were not the actions of monsters or savages. These were the actions of a species that valued life and community and growth. Perhaps the war between humans and dragons was based on misunderstanding rather than genuine incompatibility. Perhaps there was hope for a future where both species could coexist, could even become friends. It was a revolutionary thought for a dragon hatchling, one that would have been considered treasonous by her elders. But Zara was beginning to understand that sometimes the most important truths came from personal experience rather than received wisdom. Outside the hangar, Titan Station continued its routine operations under the constant threat of renewed dragon attacks. But, in Maintenance Hangar 7, two unlikely friends had begun to bridge a gap that their respective species considered impossible to cross. Neither Zara nor Rodriguez knew it yet, but their friendship would soon become the catalyst for changes that would reshape the relationship between humans and dragons forever. For now, it was enough that a frightened hatchling had found safety and kindness in the most unexpected place possible. Over the following days, Rodriguez and Zara developed a routine that worked around the humans' military duties and the dragon's need for secrecy. Rodriguez would visit early in the morning before her shift and again late at night when the corridors were mostly empty. She brought food, fresh water, and gradually introduced Zara to various aspects of human culture through stories and simple lessons. Zara's language skills developed rapidly, progressing from understanding basic concepts to grasping complex ideas and emotional nuances. She began to speak in halting English, her vocal cords struggling to produce sounds that dragon physiology wasn't designed to make. But her determination to communicate with Rodriguez overcame the physical limitations. "Why, you help me?" Zara asked during one of their evening conversations, nearly a week after their first meeting. Her voice was soft and musical, even when speaking human words. Rodriguez paused in her task of cleaning Zara's wing bandages. It was a question she had been expecting, but one that was difficult to answer honestly. "Because you needed help," she said finally. "Because you're just a child, and children shouldn't suffer for the mistakes of adults." "But I am dragon," Zara pointed out. "Your enemy." "Are you my enemy?" Rodriguez asked in return. "Have you done anything to hurt me or threaten the people I protect?" Zara considered this carefully. Dragon culture placed great emphasis on precise thinking and logical analysis. "No," she admitted. "I have done nothing to harm humans." "Then, why should I treat you as an enemy?" "You're not responsible for the war any more than my own children back on Earth are responsible for the human military actions that caused it." This concept of individual responsibility separate from group identity was foreign to Zara's cultural background. Dragons thought in terms of clan loyalty and species obligation. The idea that she could be judged as an individual rather than as a representative of her entire species was both liberating and terrifying. "Your children," Zara said, latching onto another concept that fascinated her. "You have hatchlings?" Rodriguez smiled at the translation. "Yes, I have 2 children. A boy and a girl, about your age I think. They live with their father on Earth while I serve out here." "You left your hatchlings to fight war?" Zara's scales shifted to colors expressing confusion and concern. "In dragon culture, parents never abandoned their young for any reason." "Not abandoned," Rodriguez corrected gently. "I'm fighting this war so they can grow up safe. So they can have a future where they don't have to be afraid of conflict and violence." "But, if all parents fight war, who teaches the young?" It was a profound question that got to the heart of one of the fundamental differences between human and dragon society. Dragons raised their young communally, with multiple adults sharing responsibility for education and protection. Humans often separated military service from child-rearing, creating situations where one parent served while the other maintained the home. "We make sacrifices," Rodriguez said. "We hope that by fighting now, our children won't have to fight later. Zara thought about this for a long time. Is working? The fighting to stop fighting? Rodriguez was quiet for several minutes before answering. I don't know, she admitted. 2 years ago, I thought it would be over quickly. That we'd resolve our differences and find a way to coexist. But it's just gotten worse. Maybe, Zara said carefully, maybe fighting not answer. What do you mean? Dragons and humans both have young to protect. Both want safety and future for hatchlings. But fighting kills young of both species. How this make better future? Rodriguez stared at the small dragon, struck by the simple wisdom of her observation. You're right, she said. The war is making the exact future we're trying to prevent. Then, why continue? Because neither side knows how to stop, Rodriguez replied. Too much has happened. Too many people have died. Leaders on both sides feel they have to keep fighting to honor those who have already been lost. Honor dead by making more dead? Zara's scale shifted to deep red, expressing anger and frustration. This not wisdom. This not logic. Rodriguez found herself nodding in agreement. Through the eyes of a dragon hatchling who had lost her entire family to the war, the continuation of violence seemed not just futile but actively evil. What would you do? Rodriguez asked. If you were in charge of making peace, how would you end this war? Zara considered the question seriously. Despite her youth, she had been raised in a culture that valued strategic thinking and long-term planning. Dragons lived for centuries and fought in terms of generational consequences. First, both sides must want peace more than victory, she said. Must care more about future than about being right about past. That's harder than it sounds. Humans don't like to admit when they're wrong. Dragons same, Zara admitted. Pride important to both species. But pride less important than survival of young. She paused, organizing her thoughts. Second, must find way to communicate without weapons. Hard to trust someone pointing gun at you. Or plasma cannons, Rodriguez added. Yes. Fear makes bad decisions. Cannot think clearly when afraid. Rodriguez was impressed by the maturity of Zara's analysis. The hatchling was displaying wisdom that seemed far beyond her years, though perhaps trauma had forced her to grow up faster than she should have. And, third? Rodriguez prompted. Must find something both species want more than they want to hurt each other. Common goal. Common threat. Or? Zara hesitated, her scales shifting to colors expressing uncertainty. Or what? Or proof that cooperation possible. That humans and dragons can work together without betraying own people. Rodriguez felt a chill as she realized what Zara was suggesting. Like us, you mean? Yes. We are proof. Dragon and human, friends instead of enemies. If others see this possible, maybe they think peace possible too. It was a beautiful idea, but Rodriguez could see the practical problems immediately. Zara, if anyone finds out about you, about us meeting like this, it won't be seen as proof of friendship. It will be seen as treason on both sides. Why? Because people are afraid. When they're afraid, they assume the worst about everything. If human military discovers you're here, they'll think you're a spy or a weapon. If dragon forces find out I've been helping you, they'll think I've been torturing you for information. Zara's scale shifted to dark blue, expressing sadness. So our friendship must be secret. For now, yes. But, maybe someday. Rodriguez trailed off, not wanting to make promises she couldn't keep. Someday we tell others about kindness between enemies, Zara finished. Someday we show that different way possible. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps in the corridor outside the hangar. Both friends froze, listening intently as the footsteps approached and, then, passed by without stopping. That was close, Rodriguez whispered. We need to be more careful. Security sweeps have been increased since the last dragon attack. Maybe I should leave, Zara said quietly. Find different hiding place. Not want to cause trouble for you. No, Rodriguez said firmly. This is the safest place for you. And? She hesitated, then continued, I'd miss you. These conversations have become important to me. Zara's scales brightened to warm gold, expressing happiness and affection. Miss you too. You are first human friend. First friend since family died. The casual mention of her lost family reminded Rodriguez of just how much trauma the little dragon had endured. She was alone in the universe except for an enemy soldier who had taken pity on her. The courage it must have taken to trust Rodriguez, to open herself to friendship despite her losses, was almost overwhelming to contemplate. Zara, Rodriguez said gently, can you tell me what happened to your family? You don't have to if it's too painful, but sometimes talking about loss helps with the healing. Zara was quiet for a long time, her scales cycling through various shades of blue and gray. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Was in nursery world. Safe place for dragon young to grow and learn. Many families, many hatchlings together. Was supposed to be protected by ancient agreements. No weapons, no fighting, just place for children. She paused, struggling with the emotions that the memories brought up. Humans came. Big ships with many weapons. We hid in deep places, but bombs went through rock. Everything shook. Everything fell. I was in tunnel, exploring, when attack began. Stayed hidden like parents taught for emergencies. Oh, Zara, Rodriguez breathed, her heart breaking for the little dragon. When quiet came, went looking for family. Found pieces. Parts of buildings, parts of dragons. Could not tell which pieces belonged to which dragons. All mixed together. Rodriguez felt sick. She had read reports about raids on what were thought to be military installations, but no one had mentioned civilian casualties. Either the intelligence had been wrong, or the reports had been sanitized to remove inconvenient truths. Rescue dragons came later, but I too scared to show self. Hid until they left. Then, human workers came to fix power systems. Hid in supply container, thought maybe would take me somewhere safe. That's how you ended up here, Rodriguez realized. Yes. Container came to Titan Station. Have been hiding since then, looking for food, trying to stay safe. Was very hungry when you found me. Rodriguez reached out slowly and gently touched Zara's uninjured wing. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact, and she was moved when Zara didn't pull away. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry for what happened to your family. I'm sorry that humans caused that pain. You're not personally responsible, Zara replied, echoing Rodriguez's earlier argument about individual versus group responsibility. But, appreciate sorrow for my loss. The humans who attacked your nursery world probably didn't know what it was, Rodriguez said. Our intelligence about dragon civilian infrastructure is almost non-existent. They thought they were hitting a military target. Does knowing this make family less dead? Zara asked with heartbreaking directness. No, Rodriguez admitted. It doesn't. But maybe it explains why it happened without excusing it. Understanding important, Zara agreed. Cannot prevent future tragedy without understanding past one. They sat together in companionable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts about war and loss and the fragile friendship they had built in the midst of conflict. Finally, Rodriguez spoke again. You're remarkable, you know that? Most beings who went through what you've experienced would be consumed by hate and desire for revenge. But, you're talking about understanding and peace and cooperation. Hate easy, Zara replied. Revenge easy. But, hate not bring family back. Revenge not make me less alone. Only building new connections, new friendships, makes future better than past. Your parents raised you well. They did. They teach that wisdom comes from thinking about long consequences, not just immediate emotions. They teach that dragons must be patient and thoughtful because we live long time and our decisions affect many generations. Maybe that's what humans need to learn, Rodriguez mused. To think beyond the immediate moment, to consider the long-term consequences of our actions. Maybe what dragons need to learn too, Zara added. We think long-term about dragon consequences, but not always about how our actions affect other species. Was dragon arrogance that helped start this war? Rodriguez was struck once again by the maturity and balance of Zara's perspective. The little dragon could see flaws in her own species as clearly as she could see them in humans, and she was willing to acknowledge shared responsibility for the conflict. You're going to be an amazing adult, Rodriguez said. When you grow up, you're going to help change the world. If I live long enough to grow up, Zara replied matter-of-factly. War dangerous time to be young dragon hiding among humans. You're going to survive, Rodriguez said with fierce determination. I'm going to make sure of it. And, when this war is over, when peace comes, you're going to be part of building that better future you talked about. Zara's scales brightened to warm gold again. We both part of building better future. Human and dragon working together. As Rodriguez prepared to leave for the night, both friends felt the weight of possibility settling around them. Their unlikely friendship had given them a glimpse of what could be achieved when fear and prejudice were replaced by understanding and compassion. Neither of them knew that their conversations were about to be tested in ways they could never have imagined, or that the future they dreamed of building together was closer than they dared to hope. Everything changed on the 10th day of their friendship when Commander Chen decided to personally inspect the abandoned sections of Titan Station. Intelligence reports suggested that Dragon infiltrators might be using the less monitored areas as staging points for sabotage operations, and she wanted to verify the security of every inch of the facility. Rodriguez was on duty in another sector when the inspection began, unaware that her carefully protected secret was about to be discovered. She had left Zara with extra food and water that morning, along with strict instructions to remain hidden regardless of what happened. But Zara was not the only one with enhanced hearing on Titan Station. Commander Chen moved through Maintenance Hangar 7 with practiced efficiency, her experienced at cataloging potential security vulnerabilities. The space seemed secure enough, abandoned equipment provided plenty of hiding spots, but there were no obvious signs of recent activity. She was about to move on to the next section when she heard something that made her freeze. A soft sound, barely audible, that definitely didn't belong in an empty hangar. It sounded almost like breathing, but different from human respiration. Chen drew her sidearm and activated her comm unit simultaneously. Security team to Hangar 7, possible intruder contact. In her hiding spot, Zara heard the human words and understood their meaning well enough to know she was in serious trouble. Her language lessons with Rodriguez had been thorough, and she recognized the tone of military alertness. This human had detected her presence and was calling for backup. Every instinct told Zara to run, to find another hiding spot or try to escape the hangar entirely. But Rodriguez had warned her that the corridors were heavily monitored, and a dragon hatchling moving through the station would be spotted immediately by security cameras. Instead, Zara made a decision that surprised even herself. She emerged from her hiding spot with her hands raised in what she hoped was a recognizable gesture of surrender. Please, she said in carefully pronounced English. I am not threat. I am alone. Commander Chen stared in shock at the small dragon standing before her. She had expected many possibilities when she heard suspicious sounds, human saboteurs, stolen equipment, maybe even a small maintenance robot gone astray. She had not expected a dragon hatchling speaking English and surrendering peacefully. What the hell? Chen breathed, her weapon still trained on Zara but her finger moving away from the trigger. I understand if you must shoot, Zara continued, her scales cycling through colors expressing fear and resignation. But wanted to say that Corporal Rodriguez is good human. She showed kindness when she did not have to. Please do not punish her for my presence. The mention of Rodriguez's name sent alarm bells ringing in Chen's mind. One of her soldiers had been in contact with an enemy dragon? The implications for security, for operational integrity, for basic military discipline were staggering. Rodriguez has been meeting with you? Chen demanded. She found me hiding here. Gave me food and water. Bandaged my hurt wing. We became friends. Zara's simple honesty was more damaging than any elaborate lie could have been. Chen's comm unit crackled as her security team responded. Commander, we're en route to your location. ETA 2 minutes. Belay that, Chen said after a moment's thought. False alarm. Resume normal patrol patterns. Understood, ma'am. Chen holstered her weapon but remained alert as she studied the small dragon. Zara was obviously young, probably equivalent to a human child. She showed no signs of aggression and her surrender had been immediate and peaceful. But Chen's military training made her suspicious of anything that seemed too convenient. How long have you been here? She asked. 10 days since Rodriguez found me. Was hiding here for some time before that, trying to survive alone. And Rodriguez has been bringing you supplies, helping you hide? Yes. Zara saw no point in lying when the truth was already obvious. Chen walked slowly around Zara, examining her from different angles. The dragon hatchling was clearly injured and malnourished despite Rodriguez's care. Her wing was professionally bandaged with military medical supplies, and her overall condition suggested she had been through significant trauma. You're the survivor from the nursery world raid 3 weeks ago, Chen realized suddenly. Intelligence reported no survivors, but you escaped somehow. Zara's scale shifted to deep blue at the mention of her family's death. I was only survivor. Was hiding when bombs fell. The confirmation that the military installation they had destroyed was actually a civilian nursery facility hit Chen like a physical blow. She had authorized that raid based on intelligence reports that claimed it was a weapon manufacturing site. The discovery that they had actually killed dragon children was almost too horrible to process. How many? She asked quietly. 43 hatchlings. 12 adults. Zara's voice remained steady, but the pain in her golden eyes was unmistakable. Chen felt sick. Military commanders learned to live with the weight of decisions that led to casualties, but this was different. This was the kind of mistake that haunted people for the rest of their lives. I'm sorry, she said, and meant it. Rodriguez said same thing. Humans seem capable of regret for consequences of actions, even when action seemed necessary at time. Sometimes being sorry isn't enough, Chen replied. No, but is beginning. Cannot build future without acknowledging mistakes of past. Chen stared at the small dragon, struck by the maturity of her response. This was not the savage, unreasoning enemy that military propaganda had trained her to expect. This was an intelligent, thoughtful individual who had suffered tremendous loss but still chose to respond with wisdom rather than hatred. What's your name? Chen asked. Zara. Rodriguez gave me this name because my dragon name too difficult for human sounds. I'm Commander Chen. I'm in charge of this station's defense. Pleased to meet you, Commander Chen. Zara managed a small bow that was probably meant to be diplomatic. Chen found herself almost smiling despite the serious nature of the situation. Zara, I need you to understand something. By military law, I should arrest you as an enemy combatant. By security protocol, I should interrogate you for intelligence about dragon military capabilities. By common sense, I should turn you over to specialists who can study you and learn about your species. I understand, Zara said simply. You have duties to your people, just as I would have duties to mine if situations were reversed. But I also need to understand what's been happening between you and Rodriguez. Has she been sharing classified information with you? Has she compromised security in any way? Zara considered the question carefully. Rodriguez has told me stories about her life, about human culture, about her hopes for peace between our species. She has not told me about military secrets or given me information that could harm humans. And what have you told her about dragon capabilities or plans? I am Hatchling. I know nothing of military plans or strategic capabilities. I told her about my family, about dragon culture, about how I came to be here. Nothing that could be used as weapon against my people. Chen nodded slowly. The explanation rang true, and it aligned with what she knew of Rodriguez's character. The corporal was one of her most reliable soldiers, not someone likely to commit treason or betray classified information. Why should I trust you? Chen asked. Because I could have hidden and listened to humans talking about military matters, but chose instead to reveal myself when you discovered my presence. Because I could have lied about Rodriguez to protect myself, but chose to tell truth even knowing it might cause her trouble. Because I could hate all humans for what happened to my family, but choose instead to believe in possibility of friendship and peace. Chen found herself nodding again. Everything about Zara's behavior suggested honesty and good intentions, but military paranoia was hard to overcome. Commander, Zara said softly, may I ask a question? Go ahead. What will happen to Rodriguez? And what will happen to me? Chen was quiet for a long time, weighing her options. By the book, Rodriguez should face a court-martial for fraternizing with the enemy and failing to report contact with a hostile alien. Zara should be transferred to intelligence specialists for interrogation and study. But Chen was a mother as well as a military commander, and, looking at the small dragon, she couldn't see an enemy combatant. She saw a traumatized child who had lost everything and, somehow found the courage to trust a human soldier.
Rodriguez will face disciplinary action, Chen said finally.
But, probably not as severe as it could be, given the unusual circumstances.
As for you.
She paused, making a decision that would have far-reaching consequences.
I'm going to offer you a choice. Zara tilted her head, waiting. Option 1, I report your presence to my superiors.
You'll be taken into custody, probably transferred to a research facility where specialists will study you and question you extensively. You'll be treated well, but you'll be a prisoner.
And option 2? Option 2 is more complicated. I've been authorized to explore diplomatic solutions to this conflict. What if you became our first attempt at establishing communication between the species? Zara's scales brightened with interest.
How would this work? You would remain here on Titan Station, but as a guest rather than a prisoner. You would help us understand dragon culture and psychology, and we would help you communicate with dragon leadership about the possibility of peace negotiations.
You would trust me with this responsibility? I would trust you to try, Chen corrected. Success would depend on many factors beyond our control.
But, at minimum, you could help us avoid the kind of tragic mistake that destroyed your family. Zara thought about the proposal for several minutes, her scales cycling through various colors as she considered the implications. Finally, she looked up at Chen with determination in her golden eyes.
I choose option 2. I want to help build peace between our peoples. Even after everything humans have done to you and your family?
Because of everything that has been done, Zara replied.
Cannot let more families suffer like mine did. Cannot let more friendships be destroyed by war.
Chen felt a surge of hope that she hadn't experienced in months. If a dragon hatchling who had lost everything to human weapons could choose peace over revenge, maybe there was a chance for a real resolution to the conflict.
All right then, Chen said. Let's go change history.
As they prepared to leave the hangar together, Chen's comm unit activated.
Commander, we have incoming dragon ships on long-range sensors. Looks like a diplomatic vessel with escort fighters. Chen looked at Zara with sudden understanding. You called them, didn't you? Somehow you contacted your people. Zara's scales shifted to display pride and determination.
Dragons have ways of communicating across long distances that humans do not understand. I have been sending messages for several days, telling my people about Rodriguez's kindness and about the possibility of peace.
What did you tell them? That I found humans capable of mercy and friendship.
That the war was based on misunderstanding and fear rather than true incompatibility. That both species have young to protect and futures to build.
Chen activated her comm unit. All stations, this is Commander Chen. We have a diplomatic contact situation.
I want all weapon systems on standby but not targeted.
Repeat, do not lock weapons on the incoming ships unless they demonstrate hostile intent. Ma'am, are you sure about this? Came the reply. I'm sure.
This is our chance for something better than endless war. As they headed toward the station's main communication center, Chen realized that the little dragon beside her had accomplished something that months of military strategy and diplomatic posturing had failed to achieve. Through simple friendship and determined hope, Zara had opened a door that could lead to lasting peace between their species. The next few hours would determine whether the door stayed open or slammed shut forever. But, for the first time since the war began, Chen felt genuine hope that they might find a way forward that didn't involve more death and destruction.
Rodriguez is going to be amazed, Chen said as they walked. Rodriguez already knows, Zara replied.
She helped me compose the messages.
She wanted to make sure I used the right diplomatic language. Chen stopped walking and stared at the little dragon. Rodriguez helped you contact dragon leadership? Behind my back?
She said peace was too important to worry about proper military channels. She said sometimes the right thing and the legal thing are different, and you have to choose which one you can live with. Chen found herself laughing despite the serious nature of the situation.
That sounds like Rodriguez. Always thinking 3 steps ahead and making my life complicated. She made both our lives better, Zara pointed out. Without her kindness, none of this would be possible.
As they approached the communication center where first contact between their species would soon take place, both dragon and human felt the weight of history settling around them. The friendship between a frightened hatchling and a compassionate soldier was about to become the foundation for a new relationship between their peoples. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be setbacks and challenges ahead. But, in a forgotten corner of Titan Station, kindness had triumphed over fear, and hope had proven stronger than hatred.
That was enough to build a future on, one careful step at a time.